kebaba. Ja miałem średni kebab, to wiesz.
Welcome back to the 21 Convention 2019 of Warsaw, Poland. Our next speaker is a good friend of mine. He's spoken at this convention many times before. This speech now will be his sixth time he returns to this stage at the 21 Convention. He is the reason I banged the hottest girl of my life at his apartment in LA a couple years ago. It was fucking awesome. He is the founder of InnerConfidence.com. He is formerly known at this convention and known now as the Hebrew Hammer of Confidence. Without further ado, please let me welcome back to the stage, Robbie Kramer.
All right, everybody. So I'm going to be talking about how to execute the perfect first date. And what I love about this convention is you get the most amazing speakers who talk about, number one, big picture theoretical stuff. And I always like to come and add in some real deep dive, deep dish sort of topics, detail-oriented, actionable, and applicable advice. And I did that back in 2014 when I spoke about texting. That speech was really well received. So I'm going to do it again and talk about how to execute a perfect first date. So this is about an 11-year discovery in the making of just constantly obsessing over women and trying to do everything I can to optimize my dating experience. And when I first started, I wasn't getting many second, third, or fourth or fifth dates. And when you learn this perfect first date, it doesn't matter if you're looking to date casually or find something more serious. This will apply. It doesn't require any manipulation or drama, no weird pickup crap like that. Makes dating fun, anxiety-free, saves you money. And it battles loneliness. And the best part, it creates sex on demand. If you can consistently run really solid dates, you can always have women in your life. So why listen to me? As Anthony's mentioned, founder of InnerConfidence.com, been a dating confidence coach for 13 years, but it wasn't always so easy, as evidenced by this photo here. I don't know if you guys can read that, but it says, "My pen is big." So that was a nice shirt I picked up in my first days starting out as reading the game and trying to get into all this stuff as a silly pickup artist. This was back in 2007, and the advice back then was awful. It got me dressing like this. As you can see, I was pretty fat, but it was my introduction to the red pill, and it totally opened my eyes to just a completely different life, as all of you guys know. Preaching to the choir here about that. So I'm really thankful for that crazy advice and just basically getting into personal growth, because I was totally unaware. I was just a poker and golf nerd, finishing college as like a 23-year-old, had really no idea what I wanted to do, but I found all this dating advice and it really kind of gave me a purpose. So that was my phase one, was getting into the red pill stuff, learning how to be a more confident guy. Then my next phase, I lost about 55 pounds here. After my first speech, actually, at the 21 Convention back in 2011, I was really inspired by a lot of the other speakers. I was like the fattest guy there. And I figured, shit, if I can't lose this weight and really optimize my appearance, what business do I have coaching other guys? So that was a huge turning point. It wasn't just losing the weight. I learned Muay Thai. I played some competitive team sports like ice hockey, and I really looked to build basically how I felt about myself, so my inner confidence could match my outer. The next phase, I call it developing game or reps. And that's really what I'm going to talk about today, because I think it's the most important thing. Mindset and approaching, that's the first step. As a kind of newbie in this stuff, you have to go out there, you have to face rejection, you have to put in the reps, you have to approach, you have to get your mindset right, and there's no skipping that phase. If you skip it, you're screwed. And after that, the biggest mistake I see almost every guy make when it comes to just simple dating is they mess up texting. They mess up the communication, and they chase women. And if you chase women, you're going to chase them all away. So learning texting, which doesn't seem like that big of a deal, is actually probably the most underrated thing when it comes to dating for guys, because they all fuck that up. That's what I gave my speech on back in 2014. And today I want to talk about the perfect first date, as I mentioned. And then recently, I've made a transition. I probably have been on, no exaggeration, maybe 500 first dates. Like, just a ridiculous amount of first dates. I did 30 dates in 30 days one time in New York City as a challenge. I've been doing this for a really long time, and I've done everything poorly, fucked everything up. And after just going on so many dates, I got pretty sick of just this whole dynamic that happens when you go on a date. Because what can happen when you start in a normal dating progression is you meet a girl, maybe you meet her out in the street, maybe you meet her in a Starbucks or whatever. You get her number, you take her on a date. That will continue on to some sort of relationship if it goes well. But I wanted to be this player, fuck boy, if you want to call it that. I basically didn't want any sort of committed or serious relationship. So I transitioned from this approaching online dating, this hunting mentality, into what I call a more farming mentality. And I focus on building my social circle, building my social media, and this was all to develop social proof. And the difference really here is female-focused versus male-focused. When you're approaching, when you're developing these skills, when you're going out, going on tons of dates, it's basically you hunting females, versus when you're focused on your social circle, social media, it's more important to develop male friendships than it is female friendships. Because the men that you meet and that you befriend will bring more value to your life than a woman here or there that you're just casually dating. So the next step was I started dabbling into the world of club promoters, model houses, photographers, influencers. So has anyone here heard of a model house? Know what that is? Show of hands. 1, 2. Okay, good. So I want to shed some light on the bullshit of the nightlife industry and kind of what's been going on behind the scenes for the past, I don't know, maybe 10 years almost. So what'll happen at a typical nightclub, you'll walk into a nightclub and the first thing you'll see is a table with a ton of beautiful models, 1 or 2 guys, and you're like, wow, this place is awesome. I'm glad I came here. Let me spend a bunch of money at the bar. Or let me get another table. And then you might see next to the DJ another table with all these beautiful girls. So those girls aren't just there hanging out. They're paid to be there. And nightclubs got pretty crafty a while back, and they started paying young broke guys to become promoters, to basically wrangle beautiful models and girls living in the big cities, LA, New York, Milan, Miami. And they would pay them to bring the girls to the club. And that way, other chumps like me would walk in, wow, this place is great, let me get a table, buy a bottle. But I wouldn't have access to those women because they were there with the club promoters. They wouldn't really leave the table, and they were just kind of there for eye candy. So I was thinking, how do I access this sort of world? Because these guys that have crazy abundance while everyone else was striking out or trying to get access to these women unsuccessfully. So I met a guy in New York who was a club promoter, and not only was he a club promoter, but he needed a way to get the women from the club to the club consistently. Because as everyone knows, women are pretty flaky. So you might invite 20 women out and maybe 5 show up. So instead of trying to wrangle women and get them to come out at the right time, he had a nifty idea. I don't know if it was his idea, but he started what we call mohos, which is short for model house. So model houses are kind of like female sorority houses for girls who move to New York or move to LA who are pursuing their modeling or acting career. They want a place to stay for very cheap or free, and they get that in exchange for going out to the nightclub. So the promoter makes money by having the house. The girls are in the house. He takes the girls to the club pays him. That makes sense? So it's a pretty interesting business model, and at the time, I was doing a side hustle by renting out short-term vacation properties on Airbnb, and I had a couple extra places that I figured, I could trade this guy for my Airbnb place, let him turn into a model house, and then I had access to these model tables and to hang out and drink for free and party with all these girls. So at first, it was like a dream come true. I could show up to a club and not pay, be hanging out at a table with 10 smoking hot girls. But then I kept striking out with all the girls. And I couldn't figure out what was going on because I was already pretty good. I was crushing dates. I was, anytime I take a girl out, and I'll go over how to do that in a second, I was doing really well. But at these model tables, I was just getting completely obliterated. And I didn't understand why. And who was crushing it? It was the other promoters, photographers. You guys all know these guys who are like photographers. Like everyone is a photographer these days. And why are they a photographer typically? Because they want to bang. And it's a joke because I know so many photographers and quote-unquote influencers who are just people trying to use that as a way to get laid or to, some sort of scam deal. But it was really pissing me off because all of these guys were crushing while I was failing miserably. So I needed to learn to basically, like everything I learned from pickup, I had to drop it all because it was all counterintuitive and it worked opposite as high-level social circle game. So I spent the next 3 or 4 years learning that, getting some really good feedback from other social beasts, other club promoters, and essentially, really weird when I look back on it, kind of transitioned from a dating coach almost to a loser club promoter. To understand this. And the way I did that, and as you can see from this picture, that's me here, is I started hosting parties. And I met a guy in Kiev who had access to Playboy models. He was basically the owner and operator for the Playboy calendar casting. So he would, cast the Playboy calendar, he would do these trips, and I was like, okay, this guy I met him through a friend of a friend, and he was already doing these sort of trips, and I thought, how can I leverage my situation to come on these trips? And I live in Kiev, Ukraine now. It's amazing. It's like Warsaw, but I think a little bit better. But basically, I figured out that if I could bring other guys to come on these trips, then we could go, it would subsidize my costs, and it was my kind of hack to get into this world. So this is me. If you guys know who Liam McRae is, it's him right there looking like Jesus. So we started going on these crazy trips, and the funny thing about the whole thing is it kind of went full circle. So end up with these club promoters in the model houses with Playboy party girls from Ukraine, and then other dating coaches. So go figure. And then I also want to talk to you guys really quickly about the circuit. Does anyone know what I mean by the circuit? So women who are basically in this party scene, they don't really have jobs, right? They're like professional party model girls, and they just basically travel around. They go to Tulum, they go to Ibiza, they go to Mykonos, LA, New York, Paris Fashion Week, film festivals, and Burning Man. And if you really want to go to the highest levels of social skills, being a player, living this ridiculous Hugh Hefner, Dan Bilzerian type of lifestyle, I would suggest checking out that circuit. This is me looking extremely douchey, surrounded by a bunch of girls. And I have to tell you, this experience the last 2 or 3 years has been the most ridiculous period of my life. All my sexual fantasies, everything on my sexual bucket list, crushed all of those a million times over, to the point where I'm finally kind of free from this obsessive chasing women craze. And at first I thought it was healthy. And I was like, oh, I'm a dating coach, blah, blah, blah. But in actuality, looking back, I think a little bit of it, I think I took it to the extreme, basically. So the trade-off, if you want to live that lifestyle, is crazy, fast, fun, adventurous, party, but physical, mental, financial unhealthiness. So for anyone in here who is looking to, if they see this picture and they're like, oh, I want that to be me, I recommend, if you maybe should try it, but there is some definite, downsides to it. And if you can see this meme here, it says, when you have a job but you're still broke as fuck, I feel like I work just to pay the bills, and that's really eating into my partying budget, says this lovely lady here. These are the type of girls in the circuit. So they're not the healthiest women. A lot of them are very toxic. I met a ton of toxic women, had some awful breakups, got cucked a million times. Not actually cucked, but dumped and cheated on, blah, blah, blah. But it was quite the experience. So if you want to learn about the circuit, there's a hilarious Instagram account to follow called Super Slutty Snake. He makes fun of this whole world. And it's really important that you guys understand this world, because if you want to date the most beautiful women, they've probably been on the circuit. Or they're on the circuit now, or they're really young and they're about to be on the circuit. These are all your models, actresses, basically, all the hottest girls in every social circle. This is the life that they're basically accustomed to with sites like Seeking Arrangements and all these different sugar daddy things with Instagram. Like, it's just a different world of hot women. The resources and the access they have at a young age, where they can basically just jet set all over the world, hang out with, idiots like me, or guys that were just uber rich, millionaires, billionaires, going from one party to the other on the cock carousel. So you really have to understand that world if you want to date very beautiful women, because that's your competition. And you can also follow me if you want. Next step. So I really recommend that no one skips the bachelor phase, or you'll probably end up returning to it. I should have done all this stuff in my late 20s, but I'm 37, and I'm basically like 8 or 9 years behind most of the other guys that were kind of doing this. Or there's guys who are really old, and they're the sponsors, the sugar daddies, and no one wants to be that guy. So, if you're old and you want to be that guy now, that's okay. No judgment, but it's best to not skip this, because eventually you'll probably return to it out of a relationship that goes bad and she dumps you, or you'll get bored of a girl and potentially return back to the single life. And you'll regret it, and you'll have to start over, especially if you're in a long relationship or you get divorced. It sucks to do this, again. So I really recommend to, enjoy being a bachelor and maximize it. How often do you hear, I wish I would have started a family earlier? Not a lot, right? Does anyone hear that? Or I'm not crazy, right? How often does anyone hear that? Only for girls, right? Yeah. So should you aspire to the Hefner Bilzerian player status? I'm just curious, and I really appreciate if everyone's honest here. Who does aspire to that? Who did? Who does? A few guys. Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's not a very long-term healthy lifestyle, and I bet if we got Hefner or Bilzerian to go on an interview and really, admit about how they feel about it. It'd be interesting to get that sort of feedback from them on whether they're really happy, because it is just so aggressive. All right. So like I said, what made the biggest difference was step 3, developing game, getting reps, going on tons of dates. It creates abundance, it battles loneliness, and it's a skill that every man should have, and it's fun. So I want to go through, I spent a lot of time on kind of the step 4 stuff because it's just more relevant, but I really want to dive deep into this dating protocol. So you guys will have this tool to go home, try it, see if it works, and rinse and repeat. Before I started using the dating protocol, all my dates basically felt like I had to reinvent the wheel, a big production, like I had to think of what does she want to do, what time should we go, all the logistics, when to schedule, how much to spend. Had to deal with flakes, getting catfished, basically, meeting a girl on Tinder and finding out on the date that she's 20 or 30 pounds heavier than she really is. Stressing to impress a girl. So I don't know if anyone's experienced these sort of things. I'm guessing most people have. But I had this anxiety to go on dates, and that would really, had a big negative impact on my dating life, my self-improvement. So with the dating protocol, you get a foolproof plan to connect as fast as possible, resulting in attraction, chemistry, sex, and you get to choose a relationship on your terms. So I'm going to throw a ton of information at you guys now. If you want to take notes, great. The goal is to appear casual, informal, spontaneous, but you really have a plan or a structure that she's never going to know about. You want to keep it a surprise to her, and always focus on entertaining yourself versus trying to impress her. That's a big mindset shift to have when you're on a date. Move through the steps I'm about to share, knowing that you can end at any step along the way. So you can end it after venue 1, venue 2, venue 3. So just because this is a 4-step process, it could take 30 minutes, and you can quit after the first step. And this is the most important thing that almost every guy messes up. I have tons of guys who I coach, day in and day out, and they'll go on a date, and I'll say, how'd it go? Like, oh, we had a really good conversation. I think she likes me. And I'll say, well, what was the physical connection like? Did you guys touch? What happened? Did you kiss? Oh, no, we were just kind of sitting at a table, and it was a really good conversation, though. That almost never results in a second date. Really good conversation usually doesn't mean anything. So it's always, 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 the only thing that matters is the physical connection, and it dictates what you're going to do on every subsequent move. So let's say you met a girl, doesn't matter, maybe you met her day gaming, you met her on Tinder, you met her at a party, you got her number, you set up a time, you're now about to meet her out on a date. Where do you go? So the first venue that I recommend is a park. A park is amazing. It's free. You can walk around, talk in the park. It's interactive. There's always new scenery. You're just cruising around, and like I said, I'm Jewish. You don't have to spend any money. If the weather is bad, then and you can't do the walk and talk in a park, then I'd recommend a dive bar, a wine bar, a coffee shop if she doesn't drink, or just as a place to chill. This first part is going to last about 20 to 30 minutes. The vibe you want is relaxed, comfortable, chill music. You're not going to obviously set the music, but don't go to a place with loud, crazy music. You want a chill, comfortable vibe. And the goal is to break the ice, to flirt, small talk. Basically, you want her to realize that you're just a cool, normal, chill guy. And the physical cues that you're looking for, which most girls will give if they're attracted to you, is they'll be touching you a little bit. And when I was studying all this dating stuff back in the day, there was all this stuff around like kino escalation and just these weird terms and like how to touch a girl and always just put me in my head. And now I just don't even try to touch them. I just wait for them to touch me because it's just way easier that way. So if you have any crap in your head around like how do I touch her, where do I touch her, just don't touch her. If she likes you and you're close to her, if you're walking with her in a park and you crack a joke or you flirt with her, she'll touch you on the arm, she'll touch you on the shoulder, she'll laugh and grab your arm when she's attracted to you. And those are very solid signals that you can trust. And just a silly escalation hack. If you haven't touched her at all and you want to move from venue 1 to venue 2, or you're just walking in the park and you want to see if she likes you, when you're crossing a street, just grab her hand. And if she looks at you weird and being like, why are you holding my hand? Or gives you a weird look, be like, oh, what? Like, it's dangerous to cross the street. My mom told me always to hold someone's hand. Like, why are you being weird? So that's an easy way to deal with that. So that's venue 1, 20 to 30 minutes. Show her you're normal. Start the date off. All the small talk, all the crap. Walk in a park is the best way. If not, this stuff, wine bar, coffee shop. On to venue 2. And if she sucks and there's no connection and she's boring, just cut the date right there. Venue 1, you're out. And if you want to schedule 4 dates in one evening, you could do back-to-back-to-back-to-back venue 1s and wait to the next date to go on to venue 2. So don't waste your time. If she sucks, if she's not touching you, if she's a bitch when you do the hand-holding thing, don't go to venue 2. Just, you haven't wasted any money. You've wasted 30 minutes of your time. Venue 2. This can be done on a park bench. So super fancy. You're walking in the park and you go to a park bench. All right. It can be done in a lounge, a speakeasy. My favorites are hookah bars, shisha bars, because I like to smoke hookah, and it's an interactive, fun sort of thing as well. The vibe for the second venue should be slow. It should be a place that's kind of dark, sexy, soft music. You want the vibe to be conducive to making out with her, kissing her, getting a little bit more physical. And the goal of this venue is to build intimacy, continue flirting, deepen rapport. Almost always, I will try to kiss a girl in this second venue. And if I've gotten the sort of physical love from the first venue, the hand-holding, the arm-touching, it very rarely fails. And if you're a really bad conversationalist, as I used to be, this is a really easy hack. It's called the questions game. You guys may have heard of that before. It's basically truth or dare without the dare. So everyone's played the questions game. So what I'll do after walking around and taking her to a park, I'll say, oh, let's grab a drink, or let's sit on the park bench. We'll sit, and if I ever feel like I'm stalling in the conversation, or if I want to find a way to deepen the conversation without potentially doing it in a harsh, jolty way, I'll say, hey, have you ever played the questions game? It's like truth or dare without the dare. So there's 3 rules. Rule number 1, really simple. I ask a question, then you ask a question. Rule number 2 is all the questions have to make the other person slightly embarrassed or a little bit uncomfortable. Otherwise, it's boring. We don't want to ask boring yes or no questions. And rule number 3, you have to be honest. And rule number 4 is you have to answer whatever question you asked. So what'll typically happen, and then you say, all right, and I'll go first. Don't be that guy to immediately ask, what's your favorite sexual position? Or where's the best place, blah, blah. We all want to kind of, get to that part and get sexual, get physical, learn about that stuff if we're attracted to her. But I always like to start with a more innocuous question like, what's the experience that you had where you got in the most trouble? If she's been arrested, maybe she'll tell you about that. You can share any crazy arrest stories where you're kicking people's ass in jail, make you look super alpha, all that nonsense. And throughout that game, it's a great way to just deepen rapport, enjoy. Most likely, she'll bring up a sexual-related question. you should really hold off on that till like the third or fourth question. And I know I'm getting kind of detailed on that, but it's just so much better if she asks you a sexual question first, because that's another huge signal that she's interested if she asks that first, and then you can feel pretty comfortable moving in for a kiss later on. So that's venue 2. Venue 3, once you've kissed her, you move on to venue 3. If you haven't kissed her, do not move on to venue 3. Because if you move on to venue 3, you'll just probably end up in the friend zone. If you haven't kissed her and the date's going, longer than you expected, or if you haven't kissed her and, it's getting to the point where you should move, then end the date there. And I'll tell you guys what to do later about going back to it. But like I said, you should almost always try to kiss her. It's a total waste of time if you don't. So once you've kissed her, the point of venue 3 is to create a couples sort of experience, because couples have sex, right? And an important part of this whole thing is the faster you get sex out of the way in a relationship, the faster you can understand if you like the person, the faster you know how good the connection is. I'm not saying you always have to speed through sex. In actuality, you want to, it's really important that you don't push for sex very fast, but in general, I'm saying the faster sex happens is better. Going out with a girl 5, 6, 7 times without sex can be really frustrating, and you might end up in a monogamous relationship you never wanted to be in just because you wanted to, I spent all this time, I went on 5 dates with this girl, oh my God, I have to sleep with her. If I don't, I'm this or that or the other. So you want to eliminate that from your head. But coming back, so venue 3 is something you can do to be playful, juvenile, have fun, be silly, be kids together. Because what that does is it creates a couples experience and a couples dynamic, and it really allows you guys to bond on a deeper level. Arcades are the ultimate place for this. Any place that has skee ball, pool, all those stupid games, big buck hunter, those are great. And another one, rock climbing. It's very physical. You get a workout in. Usually you get a nice view as well. And other activities. Basically any activity is great for a third venue. However, if you're trying to move through the dating protocol in one evening, best is to do a park bench, or a park and a hookah bar, followed by an arcade. So I developed this when I was living in New York and going on all these dates. And the arcade place I would go to was in like the same block as the other 2 bars. So it was this bar, arcade, move through this dating protocol very quickly. And physical cues, you're going to touch her like a couple, right? You've already made out with her. You've kind of crossed that imaginary threshold where, do we like each other? The answer to that is, did you make out with her? Did you kiss her? The answer is yes, then yes, she likes you. The cat's out of the bag. And if you want just a fun way, another silly little escalation hack is betting on a game of pool, or betting on one of the silly arcade games, or something during the activity, and the winner gets spanked, or the winner has to go in the bathroom and, use your imagination. Venue 4, anywhere you can fuck, pretty obvious. The vibe, chill, sexy. The goal, have great sex, enjoy the connection. Physical cues, duh. Escalation hack. This one's kind of silly. So typically, I would, go to this arcade. We'd be making out, having fun, and then I'd be like, all right, let's go. We'd jump in a cab or an Uber. I would, just put the address of my place in, and the cab would just start driving. Sometimes the girl would say nothing, and she would just be like, okay, guess we're going home and hook up. Cool. Sometimes she'd be like, where are we going? And I would just say, my place. And if she gave me a weird look, I'd be like, don't worry, I'll be an 86% gentleman. And does anyone know what that means, really? It has no meaning, exactly. It basically means, don't worry about it. And you really should be an 86% gentleman, which means don't be pushy, don't rush it. Also, you never want to make a girl responsible for going back to have sex, because it can trigger all of the sort of crap in our society, especially in the US and Western society, about being a slut or being this or being that. So I'll always use the 86% gentleman thing, or I'll say, oh yeah, we're going back to, you can meet my dog. And sometimes, she'll arrive and she'll be like, where's your dog? Oh, he died. I forgot. Because she's not actually going back to meet your dog. Or any dog, or your goldfish, or you can, I had a lot of fun just making up the most ridiculous shit possible. I was in Australia and I said, oh, I really need your opinion on this shirt I got. Oh, okay. It's crazy. When you get back to your place, the best thing to have, as I mentioned earlier, is a hookah, shisha. It's just such a great little fun thing to do. If she doesn't drink, then she can still smoke. They say it's not so healthy for you, but I don't know. So get a shisha. It's like the easiest thing to do. It costs $20. Following up, the next day. It doesn't matter if you had sex, if you didn't have sex, whatever. If you want to see her again, this is just the easiest standard text. So I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to text you to say that I had a good time last night. No, but I really did. And the beauty of this text is, you're saying that you had a good time, you're acknowledging the fact that you enjoyed, you're kind of teasing her a little bit, and you'll have a pretty good general idea of her interest in you based on her response to this. All right. So second, third, fourth, fifth dates. If you ended the first date at your house or a hotel or any venue where you can hook up, whether or not you actually had sex or not, don't be pushy. Don't, just because you got her back to your house doesn't mean you're gonna have sex. And don't be that guy, because if you push too hard, you'll never see her again. If she obviously likes you, if she's made out with you, if she's going back to your house, she likes you. If she doesn't have sex with you that night, she'll probably have sex with you the next time or the time after that. But if you push hard and you try to make it happen, then odds are you'll never have sex with her, and who knows? That's a terrible fumble on the 1-yard line. So don't do that. If you ended the first date on venue 4, start on venue 3. If you ended the first date on venue 3, start on venue 2. If you ended on venue 2, start on venue 1. And if you ended the first date on venue 1, start on venue 1 again. So you always want to kind of back up one level and to re-engage or reinitiate that physical connection that you had before. Because I see so often guys they'll make out with the girl at the end of a date, and then they'll immediately go to the next stage in the protocol, which would be a couples experience the next time they hang out, but maybe they don't have that same chemistry and that same connection that they had on the first date because a week has gone by or whatever happened, life got involved. And then they do this couples experience, but it's not really a couples experience because there's no physical vibe, and then the whole date just kind of crumbles and she says, oh, sorry, I didn't feel the vibe. So you won't have to deal with that if you backtrack to the venue previously. And if more than a week has passed in between dates, then it's very important just to start from the very beginning. Scheduling. The weaker the physical connection, the faster you want to schedule the next date. Ideally 2 to 3 days later. If you simply went out with her on the first venue and that was it, you'd want to schedule the next date 2 or 3 days later. If it was a Thursday night, try to see her on a Sunday or a Monday. because if too much time passes, that connection will fizzle. And if it's a very strong connection, if you hooked up, you could wait 7 to 10 days to see her again. And the reason for doing that is to signal that you're not looking for anything serious if you want to stay casual. I'll get into more of that in a second. Also, I like to avoid weekends, because if you try to see a girl on the weekend immediately, you're giving off more serious relationship type of vibes, and it also kind of shows that you don't have a social circle and you don't have a life. You should be going out with your friends, going to meet more women, having fun, doing things for yourself, rather than going on dates on Friday and Saturday nights. Setting expectations after sex. So you have to ask yourself, what do you want? If you're looking for a serious, long-term, monogamous relationship, you can run through this and keep seeing her, and that's likely what will tend to happen in the Western world under the traditional dating standard narrative that we have. If you don't want that, don't ever get into a relationship just because you want sex, and it's always better to take things slow. So I like to, if I'm seeing a girl in the beginning for the first time, just getting to know her, hooking up with her casually, I never see her more than once a week, because like I said, it'll give off the vibe that you want something more committed, you want something more long-term. A quote I heard a long time ago from a mentor of mine, it says, if you're seeing a girl more than once per week, you're in love with her, or she's your girlfriend. And it doesn't matter if you tell her, baby, I told you I'm single, I'm a player, I'm this, I'm that. If you're seeing her more than once a week, she's going to think you're in love with her, or she'll think you want something more serious, almost all of the time. So let your actions do the talking more than your words. Players versus fuckboys. Does anyone know the difference between a player and a fuckboy? Basically, a player is someone who's dishonest, and they're lying, manipulating, using girls, for example. And a fuckboy is just a guy who fucks a lot, and he's an idiot, but whatever, he's just a horny guy who likes to fuck. So it's actually better to be a fuckboy than a player. And girls love fuckboys. They'll keep fucking fuckboys. If they think you're a player, they'll probably stop fucking you because they feel like you fucked them over. So that's an internal mindset to have. And when you're too much in this, like, how do I describe this? So if you're a fuckboy and you have that mentality, you're going to avoid tons of drama, right? So the way to deal with running through this dating protocol and still remaining single is, and not having to deal with women, breaking their hearts, wanting to be with you long term, blah, 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 is you turn this into kind of a hybrid date / invite them out to hang out with you and your friends. I'll explain that. So let's say you meet a girl, you already have a good social circle, you're partying, you're kind of living this next stage that I talked about in my progression. Do you want to take her on a date? Well, probably not. So what you do is very simple. Just to get to know her, you meet her for 30 minutes for venue 1. You end the date there. And then the next time you want to see her, you wait till you're doing something social. Maybe that's a party you're throwing, or maybe you're going out with some friends to some other party or nightclub, and you invite her with a friend. What'll happen when you do that is she'll show up, she'll meet your friends. She'll also see that you're I don't want to say you're a fuckboy. That could be the wrong interpretation for people out there listening, be like, I'm not a fuckboy. But she'll see that you're not looking for anything serious. And that's very important, because then she'll know, like, oh, okay, this guy is obviously very social. He probably hooks up a lot. If she's beautiful and sexy, blah, 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 she probably does too. So it will be a very comfortable environment for her to go out. She might even hook up with your friends, which is okay, because you could hook up with her friends. And later on, eventually, I like to say, if you're living this sort of social circle circuit lifestyle, you'll hook up with everyone in the end of the day. And that was an interesting phenomenon. I had a friend say that to me a long time ago. He's like, eventually I hook up with all of them. And I'm like, how? What do you mean? How does that work? And then I learned that the reason why is because you're providing so much social proof and so much value in your social circle. You're never chasing girls. You're never trying to take girls on, crazy dates, that all of them are like, okay, this guy clearly has other women in his life. He's cool. He's not super into me or chasing me. I should hook up with him too, like everyone else. Makes sense. So that's how to essentially be a player that's honest, how to be a fuckboy and be ridiculous and live this lifestyle if that's what you want. So these are just some mistakes I'll run through. A huge mistake that I'll see you guys make is asking out for a specific date. So you're texting with a girl and you message her, hey, are you free on Thursday? And she responds, no, I'm busy. Then you have to say, oh, what about Sunday? Immediately puts you into chase mode. So never ask a girl out for a specific day. Always say, hey, when are you free? Or hey, how's your schedule next week? Next, letting her pick the venue. If you let her pick the venue, you can't do any of this, right? All of your planning will be for naught. The most important part of this protocol is you have a plan, you have a structure to follow. It allows you to enjoy yourself and not stress over what you're going to do or where you're going to take her or what you're going to order or blah, blah, blah. And if she tries to pick the venue and she's not, she won't waver on that, reschedule if needed. It's better to reschedule than to let her do that. Scheduling the date for too early. If she wants to go out before 8 o'clock, then she's probably going to be expecting dinner. And dinner is not part of this. Dinner is stiff, it's boring, or it can be boring. Trying to make a connection and talk with a mouthful of food is never fun. I really like to enjoy my food, so I like to eat without talking a lot of the time. So I just find that when I'm on a date and I'm eating at the same time, it just sucks. So avoid food until later, maybe like a venue 3 if you've already connected with her and it's a couple's sort of experience. So always try to schedule your dates for 8:30 or after. If she can only meet early, then just meet for coffee for 30 minutes and leave. And schedule the next date on an evening when she's free. Driving. So this is a huge one, especially if you live in the U.S. in a big kind of sprawling city, somewhere like Orlando, L.A. What you'll have is she'll live 30, 45 minutes away, and she'll want to meet at a place in the middle. And that sucks because now you're driving, she's driving, you guys can't drink, or someone might drink and then they risk a DUI, which is completely insane. So just eliminate this totally by offering to send her an Uber. And you might be thinking, oh, it's expensive to send a girl an Uber. It might be $20 to Uber her to the venue. You might have to take a Lyft because your Uber is busy, and that might be another $20, but you'll save that money in not going for dinner, not going on other stupid expensive dates, because this stuff basically is free, costs almost nothing. So you'll save that money in the long run. And the faster you get sex out of the way, the faster you can go on Netflix and chill dates, which don't cost anything at all. So save it early. Don't drive, always use Uber. Pushing her to drink. Some girls like to drink. If she shows up and she starts drinking beer or whiskey, as they say, she's probably frisky. So I never try to push a girl to drink. I'll order a drink and I'll ask her what she wants. If she doesn't want to drink, that's fine. Especially in Ukraine, a lot of the girls like to drink juice. It doesn't mean they won't hook up, just they like to drink juice. I don't know. Reacting to flakes. Girls flake. The hotter they are, usually the more they flake because they just have more opportunities, and it costs them almost nothing to flake. They know that you'll probably be okay with scheduling again. So be completely non-reactive. She flakes, say, okay, cool. If she flakes and doesn't even message you, just no shows, don't ever talk to her again, because that's just rude as fuck. But if she flakes, just say, okay, cool, and wait for her to schedule the next date. Because if you try to schedule it, now you're in chase mode. So it's okay if she flakes, just say cool, and you're not going to contact her again. Eventually, she'll hit you up because you're the guy who didn't chase her. It might be 3 months, it might be 6 months. She might start dating another guy in between and come back to you. And then if you hear from her 3 or 6 months later, you know she was thinking about you all that time, or at least had you in the back of her mind. So it'll even be more powerful if she comes back and gets in touch with you later. Conversation booby traps. This one should be pretty obvious. Do not discuss politics. Do not discuss religion, unless you really want to cockblock yourself. Those are okay discussions for after you've had sex, and if you want to see if maybe they're a potential for some sort of other, longer term relationship, and you want to make sure your values align, but it's just not ever a good conversation. Even if you have the same ideologies and even if you're the same religion, discussing that stuff is just not sexy, it's not fun, and you think you're making a connection, but you're really killing the physical connection, which matters the most. Like, you don't talk about politics and have her, start caressing you very often. It's just, I don't know. Of course, there's situations that, there are exceptions to the rule. Not many. Having a dirty place. I can't tell you how many guys make this mistake. They'll schedule a date, they'll run through the dating protocol, they'll bring her back, and they'll be like, shit, my place is dirty. And she comes over, and you look like a frat boy or a disgusting pig, and the whole thing is ruined because you were lazy and you didn't clean up your place. So it's a great excuse to always have a clean place. And most importantly, for your place, for it to be clean, focus on the kitchen and the bathroom. If you have roommates, you might be like, oh, well, I'm just going to ignore those areas because my roommates are dirty and slobs, but I'll keep my bedroom really clean because, if I bring a girl over, she's obviously going to come in the bedroom. Well, think again. She's going to come over. If you have a dirty kitchen or a dirty bathroom, she's probably going to use your bathroom. She's going to think you're a slob. She's going to think you're gross. It's not going to turn her on. It's going to turn her off. And she's never going to make it to the bedroom. And in fact, I prefer to try to hook up on the couch or on the kitchen table or somewhere totally unexpected. Because she's expecting you to try to take her into the bedroom. And the less that... The more you kind of throw her for a curveball, the more she'll be like, oh, wow, this guy's super smooth. This is interesting. This is cool. Different. Don't have a dirty place. And lastly, not following the dating protocol. Follow it. It works. It makes sense. If you try to change or do something on the fly or say, oh, no, this girl's different. I shouldn't follow it for this reason or that reason. I created this thing, and I've even screwed that up many, many times. And always I kick myself. What's wrong with you? Why didn't you follow your own stupid dating protocol? Idiot. That's the reason that most dates fail, is because you screwed something up in this. And if you look back on all of your successful dates, I'm guessing they kind of followed a very similar structure. It's not like I just made this up. This is reverse engineered from not just my experience, but hundreds of other guys that are very, very successful. Next steps, I would recommend getting maximum reps, going on so many dates that you either find an awesome girl or you build a harem of girls if that's what you want, or you switch to the social circle thing I talked about throughout this speech. If you really want to enjoy life as a single guy, travel around, hook up, have fun, meet really interesting other guys. That's probably the best part of all this, is the friends I've made traveling around and hanging out with beautiful women, because those guys are always interesting. They're usually in really good shape, have really successful businesses and careers, and the networking and the payoff of meeting these guys is totally life-changing. Meeting one amazing guy can radically change your life. Meeting a hot girl and hooking up with her is fun, but it's not typically something that's going to last. So get maximum reps in, switch to the social circle stuff. If you want to learn the social circle stuff I was talking about and dive deeper into that, I have a course called Leverage. You can check it out there on my site. And if you guys want to download this speech and a longer version of the dating protocol with some different examples and stuff like that, it's free. Just download at innerconfidence.com/21. That's it.
Guys, we have time for questions, so just raise your hand and I'll come to you.
I've got 3 questions, but I'll try to
Let's
get one. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So, pertaining to the venue situation. So, in my experience, I don't really have time, I find, to progress on to venues 3 and 4. So, my model has been very similar to yours in the sense that 1, 2, and then that's where proximity comes into importance, where I always make sure that venue 2 is close to where you're going to bang her, basically, right? So apartment, hotel, Airbnb, whatever. Like, does that factor into your
Yeah, the
consideration?
closer the better.
Right.
Like, obviously, you save on Ubers, shorter time walking. I mean, my favorite is walk in a park, sit on a park bench, find a little silly arcade or a hookah bar right by my house, and then straight up. So proximity, the closer the better, for sure.
All right, that's my one question.
Yeah.
Thanks.
One more.
One more? Is
You got
that okay?
Yeah.
Have you noticed a real dichotomy between night game and day game these days? Because I have, because getting a girl's number and following up that later is okay for day game, but it seems to me like, especially in the last 5 years or so, night game, especially with if the girl's like a 6 or higher, you pretty much need that same night lay to get any sort of traction on her on follow-up. So, it's not like in the past where you get the contact info at a club or at night and then follow up later. Nowadays, I find if you do that 8 out of 10 times, you're not going to get any response from her. Especially if she's 6 and above, she's got so many other options, guys blowing up her, whatever.
Yeah, she's on the circuit.
Yeah, exactly. She's on the CC, right? So have you noticed that yourself in the night game? Like, it's almost imperative nowadays to get that same night lay.
Yeah, I have noticed that, and in different cultures, different cities, that's even more of a factor. Like, especially in Northern Europe, where a girl will go home and fuck you before she'll hold your hand. Depending on the culture, the physical escalation, the connection can be radically different. Like, if you guys have ever been to Iceland, Sweden, like it's casual sex is just not a big deal at all. So yeah, and you can actually run through this in a bar or a club. You can kind of do the same thing if you just think about you meet her, you're at the table, or you're at the bar, you move her around, you go somewhere a little bit more intimate, you make out, you bring her back to the table, or you cruise around, you make fun of other people. That's like the couples experience. You go outside for a smoke, you go people watching, and then you bounce to another club or you bounce to your house. So you can do this all in one venue if you're creative enough about it.
And alluding to the hand-holding thing, like, I've noticed that it's especially in Western societies like the Anglosphere, that is a huge cock block. I mean, at least for myself, I find that every time I've tried to hold a girl's hand during like the first date or even the second date, they interpret that as a sign of weakness. So I've gotten to the sex without holding the hand a lot more often than had I held a hand and cock blocked myself.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because there was something I wanted to add to that. So when I do the handhold thing, like the silly example on the street, I'm not looking to hold her hand the whole time. I'm only looking to test to see if she'll hold my hand or if she's like weirded out by it. And there's some cultures where I won't do it at all, like if I'm in Sweden or Iceland, because hand holding for them is more intimate than sex. So that's not every girl obviously, but be careful about that. And it's more of an attraction test than like hold her hand and try to be, cute boyfriend, girlfriend. It's more about seeing if she likes you and touching you a lot. So,
Right,
thanks. Yeah.
Great. Got one more here.
Yeah.
Hey man, thank you so much for the presentation and sharing the knowledge. I want to ask you about farming. When you, like the way you put it, like when you're bonding with other men and you're socializing and you're getting to know other guys out there during the night. And in my head, I have this like moment when I'm like socializing with guys, getting to know someone, sharing some knowledge, and then there's this hot chick right there, and I'm like most of the times I'll feel inclined to like, oh, so like wait a second, let me run to her and like talk to her, right?
Right.
So, what, in your perspective, what would be a mindset that you would suggest in these situations?
Well, the beauty of farming and social circle is your mindset or your goal is to always provide maximum value. So I never show up to a party without either things to help people, get more drunk or girls, right? You never want to come empty-handed. And that way I'm always invited back. I'm always loved by the guys. Like if you show up to a party with 3 girls, you're always going to get invited back, and every guy's going to want to meet you. If you show up to the party with a ton of booze, it's not as good, but you'll still get invited back, right? And what I'll find is the more I bond with the guys, especially if they're, other guys who brought other girls or, high status, cool guys, is I can ignore the girls and just talk to him. And the more I ignore the girls, the more they come to me in the end. The more they vie for your attention. Also because I'm only going to parties and events where the ratio is hugely stacked in my favor. As you guys saw in that picture, there was 6 of us on that boat and 20 girls. So when you get into these high level social status, social circle games, or social circle communities, the ratio is always great because you're weeding out guys that don't have girls. And that creates a really competitive environment for the girls where they're always chasing you. And it completely changes everything because now instead of like worrying about going to talk to this girl, you're just hanging out talking to your buddy, and at the end of the night you're like, okay, maybe I'll take you 3, let's go have an orgy. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's really, it's very, very common and normal for the people hanging out in these sorts of environments.
Great. Probably got time for one more. Anyone else? You got another? Okay. Anyone else? All right. Well, let's give it up for Robbie Kramer. Yeah.
Same dużego kebaba, ja miałem średni kebab, wiesz.